Back in 2009 or so, I was really getting into the King's Quest series of adventure games for the first time, and I loved watching Ways to Lose compilations on YouTube. King's Quest VII was definitely my favorite game at the time, and I pretty much knew all of the distinct ways you could die already. In fact, my dad had given me an unauthorized player's guide, and it said there were 39 distinct ways to die in the game. I was reading through Shady Paradox's comments on one of his Ways to Lose videos, and I noticed he had responded to someone that said he had skipped a death in Chapter 1 of the game. This person said, the Desert Wanderer, one of the first characters that you encounter, can actually kill you. So reading this at the time as someone who was disproportionately intrigued by this specific NPC, whose name was Colin Farwalker, if you Google Colin Farwalker, that's me. It made me confused but curious. Of course he couldn't kill you. You don't even have to help or interact with him at all to complete the game or finish the chapter. He can get angry at you, but he will not kill you. That's just not part of the game. I even tried it myself. I clicked every possible inventory item in every combination to get him to interact differently with Valenice, the protagonist. There's not even an indirect way that making him angry affects your outcome in Chapter 1. So why were a number of people insisting that the Wanderer could harm you? Because of this misconception, regardless of how it came to be, every time I fire up the game today, I still think of this. Colin Farwalker can't hurt you, but a lot of people think he can. Maybe they just think he should be able to. Everything else in the game can obliterate you. Militia, the boogeyman, the swamp creature, the snake oil salesman, Lady Seppish, Teppish, the wind spirit. Maybe it just makes sense according to Sierra logic, since they are very famous for their ridiculous amount of deaths in their games. His tragic backstory, his eerie voice, his random appearances when you're exploring the desert make it seem like this should be real in a way. Yesterday morning, I became wistful of this idea, and I pulled up Shady Paradox's King's Quest VII Ways to Lose Chapters 1 and 2 video for old time's sake, and I was hoping to find those 17-year-old comments. I feel vindicated, yet so much more intrigued. 2 years ago, anyone remember getting killed by the Desert Wanderer? I swear he killed you if you kept talking to him. 1 month ago, yes, he does. If you keep following him after he tells you to leave because this thirst drives me mad and I don't know what I might do, so freaky. And then the commenter from 2 years ago actually replied to that and said, I remember doing that to see what he'd do, and I remember him lowering his hood or something and attacking Valenice. They must have taken it out in an updated version of the game because I never saw it again. This is so fun. There is misinformation being spread about Colin Farwalker in the year 2026. This misconception, or I guess a video game micro-urban legend, if you will, probably exists for pretty much every game out there that still has a fan base. But this kind of thing feels oddly congruent with the current niche of analog horror and backrooms content. As in, there's something hidden in the programming of this game or in this virtual abandoned space that will lead you to uncover something. Maybe something terrible will happen to your character. I am reminded of the Webkinz killer rumors of the late 2000s, those edited videos that were trying to say that there was a chance that your Webkinz could get attacked. Obviously, you cannot get killed in Webkinz, you can't die, but the shock factor is a fun thing for kids to indulge in and joke about, of course. Younger Zoomers have actually asked me before if I remember the VHS anti-piracy screens, and they asked me if it ever scared me or if I noticed anything off about them. There's this underlying will to uncover something below the pre-written, pre-programmed media. That's the fascination with Easter eggs and hidden messages and everything in the code. And let me reassure you that King's Quest games have been picked apart for Easter eggs and all kinds of hidden messages. There's no question that this instance of Colin Farwalker killing you doesn't exist. There would need to be animation, sound effects, voiceover, and a death screen for it to be possible. Like the Webkinz horror, people just enjoy indulging in the idea that it's somehow possible. I think a portion of the audience They want this to be a part of the game, they at least think it's fitting for the character, and they've even convinced themselves in some cases that it is there, which is so genuinely amusing to me. Colin Farwalker, I know you are not a killer. I love you. There's something else in the King's Quest series that all of this mystery and speculation and longing reminds me of. Prince Alexander visits the Isle of Wonder and discovers a kingdom through a garden gate called Chessboard Land. It's so distinct from every other screen of the game. Lush, rolling hills covered in a smooth checkered pattern, a wide open sky filled with stacks of golden clouds, and a path that stretches far beyond the horizon. No humans allowed in Chessboard Land. Every player has tried to go into Chessboard Land. They might have clicked every inventory item on every inch of the screen, or talked to the knights 10, 20, 30 times thinking each time would do the trick. Maybe timing it correctly, or giving the red or white queen a certain item might let you pass somehow. It's not possible. There's not a background for it. They didn't program anything for another screen of the game here. It doesn't exist. This is how far you can go. Fans tend to say online that they wish so badly you could go into Chessboard Land. Some even say they have dreamt about it, and I've actually had at least one Chessboard Land dream. I want to feel it. I want to see the texture of the ground up close. I want to feel the temperature and the wind. I want the glow of the clouds to make my eyes sting for a moment. It looks like a place you should be able to go, but can't. The author evidently did not want you to be able to go there. While I haven't seen any claims of this, if it's anything like the Colin Farwalker issue, there might even be players who recall seeing the inside of Chessboard Land. But once again, it's impossible because it doesn't actually exist, and players have to sit with the wondering, the want, the yearning, and just enjoy the pixels that we do have. There's actually some nuance to that. Around the time I was really getting into King's Quest as a kid, I discovered a fan-made game called The Silver Lining by Phoenix Online Studios. Looking back, it's kind of a big deal that there was a free-to-download 3D animated game with full voice acting and a soundtrack based mainly on the locations from King's Quest VI, which is arguably the most beloved game in the whole series. And it's hours of gameplay, and side note, the game is not finished still to this day. You visit Chessboard Land multiple times. You don't just go through the front gate and look off into the distance where you can't go. You set foot inside Chessboard Land and you see what's really up the path. But this is a fan-made game. This is not officially canon, so you're not really going into the Chessboard Land. While this game isn't officially licensed by Sierra either, Sierra in its original form doesn't exist anymore. This doesn't have much bearing on whether or not another King's Quest game could be considered canon, but the Silver Lining's degree of validity when it comes to expanding on pre-existing locations is subjective and up to the player. The expansion of these King's Quest VI locations is so fun to explore. It's really a blast to play around with, and it feels like it honors the series in a heartfelt way. But when it comes to Chessboard Land specifically, as opposed to all the other locations, including it feels a little defiant to me personally. The way I interpret no humans allowed in Chessboard Land, it means that we, the players, are not ever meant to see it. No matter how much we wish we could go there, it seems to reflect more about the author's purpose than just a limitation of the game due to space constraints or Alexander's personal inability to go there. But here's the thing, if fans want to see it and fan games can do whatever they want, then why should we be deprived of going into Chessboard Land? What's stopping someone from adding a mod to King's Quest VII so that Colin Farwalker can actually kill you? Before watching Revenge of the Sith as a 6-year-old, I already knew the entire plot. I would routinely ask my dad what happens in episode 3. I knew Anakin was Darth Vader. I knew he was going to turn to the dark side. But I had badly hoped that somehow this would be different. His descent and transformation deeply cut into my emotions, pretty much as heavy as it could be for a 6-year-old, I guess. Every time I would rewatch it, I had hoped that somehow George Lucas had slid down the chimney in the middle of the night and replaced our DVD with Revenge of the Sith Special Edition tradition. Anakin raises his kids on Naboo. Yes, Anakin, exactly, yes, your lightsaber. Move your lightsaber into his head. You're right, he's a Sith Lord. Stop walking around him and talking to him and everything. You're gonna become a fascist genocidal maniac and abandon your children. Just do it right now. This pain inflicted on the audience by the author is on purpose. This pain has reflexively caused a lot of fans, including me, to want a what if series that actually lets us experience the satisfaction of a happy ending for Anakin, Padme, Luke, and Leia. I just want to see it artistically depicted from some licensed source, even if it's all just maximum fan service. I just want that hit of excitement from it. Fan service is often in defiance of sensible narrative boundaries, whether or not you find that fine. A character or plot point essentially breaches containment just to appear and evoke an exclamation point in the mind of the viewer. The pure joy of seeing your favorite character show up to save the day, or an unlikely location being reused for nostalgia, I think it's fine. I think it's fine for things to exist for fun in stories. But these insertions and embellishment just for fun will eventually wear away at the intentionality of the work. An author's intention is like a perimeter or a container. Certain things are possible, certain things are meant to be seen or said, and especially certain things are never meant to come within the reach of the viewer or reader or listener, because it's outside the purpose or the universe created by the author. I'd argue that some media virtually doesn't have much of a perimeter at this point. It's essentially a theatrical version of Roblox. Going back to Star Wars, and before I say this is April of 2026, so it is intentional that Yoda's species and homeworld are never named. I have always wondered where he's from, what species he is, if he had a family, if he originally spoke Basic, if he had a life before becoming a Jedi. But having a full fact sheet about every character ever created for a franchise, and while Star Wars in particular tends to do this anyway, it's not a requirement. Dare I say, it would open the mystery box. Okay, this section was about J.J. Abrams' mystery box method of filmmaking. I basically made the point that withholding too much information from the audience can be a problem, and therefore the audience is going to justifiably want more from the story, but I don't feel like I really had to make that point, so let's just move on. What the author chooses to withhold and what they choose to never reveal or develop or make is equally as important as what they do choose to include. The author's intent. The artist's intent. I figuratively have white knuckles right now. A while ago, I made a TikTok addressing some concerns I had about the Sierra gaming community using a particular technology to see these games and their characters depicted in every way they want to see. The following exchange I had with another TikTok user was what sent me down the trail to even form a personal philosophy about storytelling and consuming narrative. I had taken everything that I included in this video today totally for granted. I was privileged to have never put any of these things into terms. I think most of us were. They seemed like a constant truth before this scenario even became a possibility. A TikTok user suggested that Henry from Quest for Glory could be modded, that he could be made into a chatbot connected to a large language model so that he could infinitely answer whatever questions you asked him in his Cockney accent and all, and you could just keep talking to him for as long as you wanted, and he would always have something new to say. This suggests to me several things. To some players, a character is only what they look like and how they talk. Basically, a person that's set to a mode, and that is their characterization. And as I say this, I realize that maybe some people's mental framework of real people is like this, and that explains a lot. This chatbot character thing also completely ignores the concept of the author. Real people made these games and had to write and design them and make the art for them and do the sound design and everything. Stories and characters which are created by those people rely on intentional choices. Always. This chatbot would be a program that displays the text based on a calculation, essentially, not a feeling. The author's choices are based on a feeling, the fact that we can think and feel things with our brains and bodies. This also just neglects what a game is. Every character is supposed to have its own perimeter, and the game has its own perimeter. Sticking an infinite chatbot in and it's just like putting a button on a door that's like, here's a portal to infinite knowledge, and it's a link to Google. When I tried explaining this in a simplified way, I got all kinds of like weavy, actually type responses about how the language model could be specifically trained on just his pre-existing dialogue, or how games have already used artificial intelligence for years. Don't get me started on that. With the cancellation of Disney's contract with Sora, they fired him. The Sora app totally shutting down as well. I'm hoping that someone somewhere realized, for the sake of the art and not for the sake of just profit, that it was a ridiculous idea for the intellectual property that Disney has fought for decades to staunchly protect to be used as half-hardened, grimy Play-Doh for people who want to see Buzz Lightyear eat ramen made of miniature versions of Woody. Characters, of course, are not just a likeness. I don't know how I came up with that. I don't want to argue that the original author of a work is the only one who can be responsible for its continuation or its intellectual property. Asking a program to generate random scenes or scenarios falls outside of storytelling in the first place. Even if it exactly resembles what a movie looks like, or if it sounds like music, or if the voices sound like people. Class, what is it missing? Intention! That's why dialogue eventually loops between video game characters. It's that there's nothing left to say. This is a known tedious quirk of gaming, but it's fundamental to its nature as a narrative vehicle. What the characters don't say is part of their characterization. Walking away from a chatbot-powered character, knowing that there is still near infinitely more possible dialogue, is like a reverse mystery box. You are trapped inside the box, and the real world is outside.
These are just shadows of the cave! Wake up! Wake up!
I think it would be bizarre to argue that abstaining from playing around with the pre-existing creations of other artists is somehow virtuous. In other words, fanfiction and reimaginings aren't going to cause your brain to rot, and it's not morally wrong to want to expand upon the original chessboard land yourself if you want to. I think it's cool that the team behind The Silver Lining created their interpretation of it that you can interact with. Your own version or derivative work of anything can be great art. I love me some fan art. When it's not fiercely disturbing, I genuinely love seeing what people can do. The issue is generative AI allowing people to visually and or audibly take in these random depictions of all kinds of characters and stories and IPs which have no author or artistic intentionality is the junk food of media consumption. It's the sour squeeze candy of media consumption. It's not good if it continues to replace the healthy parts of our media diet. Why is intention important in the first place? Why do I keep saying this? Because that's what gives meaning to works of art. You'll hear people say things like some songwriters don't give their songs meaning, or, people splatter paint on a canvas and call it art. Meaning is not another word for reasoning or motivation in this case. The fact that a human, someone with a capacity for meaning, makes a random brushstroke on a canvas, there's some inherent artistry there, even if it's very, very simplistic. But generative AI doesn't have capacity for meaning because it can't feel. And it's vital that we don't get to the point of exclusively consuming images and video and audio that were produced without that fundamental layer of intent. The media diet thing isn't unique to generative AI. Pre-LLM era, there was already regular slop filling our feeds. Stolen images, things cobbled together for click revenue. In my Fiverr days, I participated in the creation of Finger Family slop videos many times. I hated singing that song, but I made money off of it. There's content out there with a very minimal degree of artistic purpose, or maybe its purpose is even a nefarious one. There's a conversation to be had here about art versus entertainment versus content versus information, and it's becoming increasingly important to have that discussion. But for all intents and purposes right now, art is any and pretty much all creative production by a human. I think the tight perception of what high art is and was in the past has been damaging to our general understanding of what art is. I remember people calling SpongeBob a mindless cartoon that was going to cause brain damage to kids, but the first few seasons are golden. Just amazing stuff. The cat is so out of the bag regarding generative AI for probably 60 to 80% plus of technology users. It's because, like any other toy, if it's fun to play with, it will be played with. People don't have the time, energy, or will to create a personal code of ethics for depicting video game NPCs. People want what they want. You can never change the way they feel. Better let them do just what they will. George Michael, please come back. Every great male pop singer has died. My parents, who are creative people, my mom used to paint and play drums, and my dad used to sing and do other music stuff. They have both played with AI, probably more than I know, and it's just not a big deal to them. They have other things to worry about, and it's like every other technology because it's been presented as the next big thing, like the internet, smartphones, and social media once were. I just hope that we all relearn to cherish the difference between a character that was written, drawn, and voiced by real people versus a generated figure that delivers generated speech. Whether or not you feel neutral or even positive about the latter, the former was worked on by humans who have loved, grieved, cried, prayed, and danced. I may or may not be in that point of my monthly cycle where I am about to burst into tears. That was a good line. Good job, me, from an hour ago. It's important that Colin Farwalker can't kill you. It is so compelling to play the game feeling like it's a possibility, or knowing that others think it's just a given that he can attack you. Playing a game for the first time in fear that every character is out to cause your demise is often what engages you with the game in the first place. The fact that the Wanderer is eerie and grotesque, especially to kids, that is the intended audience for King's Quest VII, it makes him distinct as a character, especially for an NPC. I should also mention that he's dead. Did I say that earlier, that he's dead? He's a ghost? He doesn't have anything to lose in that respect. He's already dead. It's revealing that he is one of the few non-chipper characters in King's Quest VII that isn't capable of murder. The yearning that I feel for Chessboard Land isn't as easy to cathartically quench, but you know that when I get a house, you know exactly what I'm doing to the floors. And that's what art does for people, baby. That's what it does to people. Oh. Roberta Williams and Lorelei Shannon wanted the desert ghost who died of thirst to be non-violent, even when you give him salt water. But the snake oil salesman turns you into a statue for trying to free a captive bird. I love women writers. Colin Farwalker made such an impression on me that when I was 12, I wrote a song about him, and I eventually used that song as my submission to my college's songwriting program, and I got in. This program has performed an illegal operation and will be shut down.